Hello, welcome to the maudifi channel and this video on the new maudifi Phono 756 Phono Stage or Phono preamp. As I mentioned in the preview short, it's one of those things I've been working on behind the scenes, and in this video I'm going to cover the background of how it has come about, the design goals and philosophy, its place in the market, and of course the most important part, sound quality. You can skip around the various sections to whatever you find most interesting. I first looked into developing a Phono Stage 15 or even more years ago. It was to be an add-in card for my preamp, which I'd already spent a lot of time developing. All of this was a personal spare time project, and it was done here and there over a long period. So when I had the opportunity to get my hands on the musical fidelity KW Phono at what seemed like a reasonable price, I went for it. It's been in my system ever since. I still had that design though in schematic capture, but I never prototyped it or progressed it to PCB. Fast forward to 2 years ago when I released the maudifi Stage 2 upgrade for the Cambridge Audio 540p and 551p. Customers were amazed at the transformation that upgrade brings to that humble Phono Stage. As ever, thank you all for your warm feedback. It still gives me a boost every time someone tells me how much more they're hearing in their music and how immersive and enjoyable it's become thanks to these mods. I made a video on that upgrade, which I'll link up here. After that was out there on YouTube, I got increased interest and sales on the 551p upgrade, but also queries from people interested in whether the same upgrade could be applied to the 640p or the 651p, and occasionally the CP1 and the CP2. The same upgrade? No. But similar? Yes. At least in theory. So in January 2023, I bought myself a 651p to develop an upgrade for it. I figured everything out and realised it wouldn't be as transformational as the one for the 551p, basically just due to the component density on the board leaving too little space. But nevertheless, it would be significant enough that people would enjoy the improvements. I ordered the components I would need and set about the upgrade. From the first component though, there were problems. The board quality made part removal, let's be polite and say difficult. I persevered though, and I got maybe a third of the way through, but I had to admit defeat and give up. I couldn't sell a kit for this that was so difficult to fit and would result in poor joints and budges. Reliability would be an issue, and I certainly didn't want to touch one of these again to even offer this as a service upgrade. So I put it to the side and got on with other things. But requests still came in from time to time from people asking for upgrades for the 640p and 651p. So I thought about this and remembered I'd started a Phono Stage project before. Why don't I resurrect that and make it fit inside one of these boxes? After all, it's still a smart looking box, and they can be bought on eBay for a reasonable amount. So they really lend themselves to a cool upcycling project. One of the concepts I founded maudifi on, after all, was the ability to upcycle audio gear into something much better. So that's what I did. On the upcycling theme, wouldn't it be great if a single board could fit in any of the classic Cambridge Audio Phono Stage boxes? The Alva Solo and Duo have an internal switch mode power supply and different footprints, so there was no point in trying to include those. But all the others, 540p, 640p, 551p, 651p, CP1 and CP2 looked overall similar in size. If only the pitch between connectors and the position of the switch was the same across all of these units, I could kill 6 birds with one stone. As if that would be the case. Well, it was! Hooray! PCB dimensions are different between the units, but could I design one that fits all? Yes. everything was falling into place, mechanically at least. Buy one of these used, stop it going to landfill, and at the same time, make it better. What's not to like? It doesn't have to be fitted into one of these boxes, of course. A competent DIYer could make their own box, or just buy a generic aluminium enclosure off the shelf. Drill holes in that and fit one of the PCBs in. What I wanted was to create something as flexible as possible. The other thing that was on my mind was how to make it easier for customers around the world to get the maudifi upgrade experience if they didn't have the time, skills or confidence with a soldering iron to do it themselves. Shipping things to and from the UK for an upgrade seemed expensive and inefficient, and maudifi is nowhere near a scale where it could have service agents in other countries. I was often asked who I recommended near the customer to do the upgrade. Sorry, I don't know. Could I design my Phono Stage so that it could be installed in one of the Cambridge boxes by just about anyone? Lastly, but most importantly, it had to deliver an open, believable soundstage, with musical details as good as, or better than the maudifi Stage 2 upgrade for the 551P. Of course, when partnered with resolving equipment elsewhere in the system chain. So those were my design goals. Great sound quality, ease of installation, and upcycling ability. Those were the primary goals, but there were other requirements, including support for both moving magnet and moving coil cartridges, and an auto mute function to avoid any switch on-off bumps. Like many high-end manufacturers, I tried to follow the rule of keeping the signal path as simple as possible, and where possible, only using quality components in that path. Power supply, components, bypassing and decoupling are also carefully considered. After components have been shortlisted on technical requirements, each part is auditioned for their effect on sound quality. Now, we have to reach a sensible balance between sound quality and price, and every manufacturer has trade-offs that they have to make to hit the price targets or even maintain their house sound. I'm not going to bore you with every last detail of the design process here. Suffice to say, it was lengthy. I knew what I wanted to do and had a starting point, but there was plenty of research, simulation, experimentation and listening required to develop the final product. The input stage is low noise design of direct signal coupling with the cartridge, so there isn't a lossy capacitor in the input. In this stage, there is a gain choice of 10 dB or 25 dB to suit your moving magnet or moving coil cartridge. From here we enter what's called a hybrid RIAA equalization stage, where the 75 microsecond pole is handled by a passive high-pass filter, with the other poles all handled in the active feedback loop. Yes, the maths here is horrible, but thank goodness Lipschitz and others have done the maths for various topologies a long time ago. Even then, it's still a pig to get your head around for the various calculations. I spent quite a few days in spreadsheets calculating different combinations to suit the available accurate components. We got there, and the measured response is actually pretty accurate, flat from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. The main gain stage is fixed at 30 dB, giving a total gain of 40 decibels or 55 decibels, depending on whether you have moving magnet or moving coil input selected. The resistive and capacitive cartridge loading are chosen on these piano switches. There are very few high-end phono stages with infrasonic or subsonic rumble filters. But given the donor chassis products had them, I investigated including that as a feature. To do it well, we pushed the price beyond what I wanted. So I landed on having a optional token second order filter similar to that used by Cambridge. This isn't fitted by default. Finally, we go through the output coupling capacitors, which are for decent quality to retain detail for signal transfer to your amplifier. I mentioned house sound earlier. Does maudifi have a house sound? Well, given that everything is tuned by me, yeah, I guess it does. But I'm not rigid. I would describe it as open, clear, spacious, detailed and realistic. Tonally is maybe just to the warm side of neutral. Soundstage and imaging are very important to me, so expect width, depth and separation between instruments to play a key role. And that's exactly what the Phono delivers. It performs even better than the maudifi Stage 2 upgrade for the 551P, and that's been maudifi's bestseller for the last 2 years. Not only does it sound better than that, it measures better too. Where it betters the Stage 2 is in spaciousness, instrument separation and detail retrieval. Technically, from a measurement point of view, it's flat, whereas the 540 and 551 have an elevated wobbly response in the bass to mid-bass region. But these aren't competitors, and I'm only mentioning that as the chassis from one of those can be used as a donor for the Phono 756 PCB. The Cambridge 640p, on the other hand, does have a flat response, but sounds boring and two-dimensional in comparison to the Phono. They're very different beasts. If you want something that has a technically flat response, and that's all you care about, then the 640p or 651p or the CP2 does that for you. But if you also want it to sound lifelike, be more detailed, and to have engaging and immersive music listening sessions, then obviously I'd suggest the Phono. But then I would say that, wouldn't I? Well, you can believe me or not, but if I didn't think it was on a totally different level, I would have given up. To my mind, there would be no point in developing something that didn't sound significantly better. Those who know me will tell you that I'm not really one for blowing my own trumpet, so these things are difficult for me to get across. I know it sounds better than the maudifi Stage 2 for the 551P, which is already a massive step up from stock performance of any of the Cambridge audiophone stages. The feedback I've received for that upgrade is amazing, and you can check that out on the maudifi website. Oh, and the initial third-party responses have scored it well for the qualities of value and have mentioned already. Actually, after an external review, I've revised a couple of component choices slightly for the standard Phono 756, which will make it a bit more dynamic sounding with rock and pop recordings. Feedback really matters, so please keep it coming. Play something like Sniffin' the Tears driver seat, and the pace and rhythm got my foot tapping straight away. There's a lively energy, and the soundstage is not bound between the speakers, unlike certain other Phono preamps I could mention. Even on this recording, a separation between instruments layers is clear. There is no muddle in the middle. Moving on to the well-known good recording Bird and Wire from Jennifer Warnes' famous Blue Raincoat album. And a big smile really came across my face. It was rich and there was a wide and deep soundstage just there to be enjoyed. Placement and separation of instruments is three-dimensional and details are clear and crisp. So there we have it, my biased opinion on something I designed. All I can say is, again, check out maudifi's previous feedback. Pricing on this has been a toughie, and I've kept it very keen initially, despite its sonic capabilities. It's currently only slightly more than the Cambridge Alpha Duo, yet it performs in a totally different league. It works with both moving magnet and moving coil cartridges, has selectable loading options, and you can choose to add a subsonic filter at order time if that's what you want. There are two versions, one with a power switch, one without. The unswitched one is intended for the older 540p and 640p chassis. The switched one for upcycling the 551p, the 651p, the CP1 and the CP2. Or as mentioned before, you can mount it in any enclosure you like. It's a new product, so initial lead times are about 4 to 6 weeks from order, but should come down as we move forward. This is simply going to be driven by ordering patterns. If there is steady demand, I'll invest more in batch builds to stock, and the lead time will come down. But initially, they'll be made to order. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can ask those below, down there, or make contact through the maudifi website. That includes for any special requests on the PhonOh, or for upgrades on any other piece of hi-fi kit. Meanwhile, keep safe, and you'll see me next time. Bye.